Accused Arizona gunman Jared Loughner is due in federal court later today, where he is expected to plead guilty in that shooting rampage that left 6 people dead and 13 wounded, including Congresswoman Gabby Giffords. Under the deal, he'd be spared the death penalty but would spend life in prison. So now lawyers on both sides say whether or not the judge accepts his plea depends entirely on Loughner himself. Judge Alex Ferrer is the host of Judge Alex and a former criminal court judge for Florida, and Dr. Daniel Bober is a forensic psychiatrist. Thank you both for joining us.
Great to be here.
So the issue here is competency. Does he understand the charges against him and the implications of pleading guilty? So Dr. Bober, what is the definition of competency in a case like this?
Well, competency is really based on what we call the Dusky standard, and that's a Supreme Court case, Dusky versus the United States. And what competency basically means, and I'm paraphrasing the standard, is that the defendant is able to work with their attorney and to understand the nature of the charges against them.
So, Judge Alex, both the prosecution and the defense agree to this plea deal. So what is the judge looking at specifically in determining whether or not Loughner is competent and whether to accept this deal?
Well, the judge is obviously going to put a lot of weight into what the court-appointed psychiatrist or psychologist says. This is not a situation like when the defendant is going to trial and the defense is trying to show that he's incompetent to keep him out of trial. This is a situation where both sides pretty much agree that he's competent. So the judge is just going to cross his T's, dot his I's, make sure there's a good record that he's been found competent. He'll probably speak to the defendant himself, colloquy him to make sure he understands the plea as well as that he understands the proceedings, the role of the parties in the courtroom. And once he's satisfied, which shouldn't be too difficult in this situation, then he'll probably go forward and accept the defendant's plea.
So, Dr. Bober, some experts say that the judge will be looking at Loughner's demeanor in court as well. He has been medicated during his entire time in custody. What impact does that have?
Well, competency is not a static process. Someone who is deemed to be competent can be incompetent after a very short period of time. The fact that his mental illness has been treated will certainly help his ability to be competent, but it won't necessarily mean that at some point he won't be incompetent. So I think the fact that he's been treated is what's important here, and that he understands the charges against him and that he's able to work with his attorney.
Judge Alex, as we said, the decision has been made to spare Loughner a death sentence. You know, there are people who are very angry who would like to see him put to death, but he has been determined to be mentally ill. What's your take on this decision?
I think it's a good decision. I mean, the death penalty is not a slam dunk by any means. I mean, we certainly, there are a lot of people who would like to see him get the death penalty, but he does have mental illness. He does have things that he can raise as mitigating factors that might convince a jury to give him a life sentence anyway. So the prosecution in this case is guaranteeing that he's not going to get a not guilty by reason of insanity. They're going to get a life sentence, and I'm sure they have checked with the victims' families, and the victims' families or the surviving victims have indicated that they're okay with the plea, so they're going forward with it. And it's not a bad decision.
All right, Dr. Alex Ferrer and Dr. Daniel Bober, thank you both so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.